The rain had been falling since dawn, the kind that seeps into bones and makes the city feel heavier than usual. People rushed past with their umbrellas tilted forward, eyes fixed on their destinations, hearts locked behind schedules and screens. On the steps of an old hospital sat a man no one noticed anymore. His jacket was too thin for the weather, his hands rough and trembling, but his eyes were calm in a way that came from having nothing left to lose. Inside the hospital, machines beeped in steady rhythms, measuring time in breaths and heartbeats. On the third floor, a woman lay still, her face pale against the white pillow. The doctors had said there was little hope. She had been alone for years, or at least that's what the records said. No visitors, no emergency contact, just a name and a bed number. What no one knew was that the man outside came every single day. He arrived before visiting hours and left long after they ended. He never went inside. He just sat there, rain or shine, counting the windows until the light in her room turned on. When it did, he would close his eyes and whisper a prayer so soft it barely left his lips. Sometimes he smiled, sometimes tears traced lines through the dirt on his cheeks. Years ago he hadn't been this man. Once he had a small home filled with laughter, a kitchen that smelled of tea and fresh bread, and a woman who believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. He was proud back then, too proud to admit mistakes, too stubborn to say sorry. When life grew hard and money ran out, his temper spoke louder than his heart. Words were thrown like stones, and one night, she walked out with tears in her eyes and hope still burning in her chest. "Come back when you remember who you are," she had said. He never did. Shame pushed him further away. Days turned into years. Pride hardened into regret. By the time he gathered the courage to look for her, the address was gone, the neighbors had moved, and the world had kept spinning without him. Then one day, while standing in line at a soup kitchen, he overheard a nurse talking about a patient. The name hit him like a blow to the chest. It couldn't be her, and yet his legs carried him to the hospital before his mind could stop them. He couldn't afford clean clothes. He couldn't afford flowers. He couldn't even afford the courage to walk into her room and let her see what he had become. So he sat outside, day after day, loving her in silence, the only way he knew how now. Inside, she often stared at the window. The nurses thought she was watching the rain or the birds. They didn't know she was waiting. Even when her strength faded, even when pain stole her sleep, she asked every morning, "Is it raining today?" And when they said yes, a faint smile would touch her lips. She had forgiven him a long time ago. On a quiet evening, the rain finally stopped. The sky cleared, and the city breathed for a moment. The light in her room stayed on longer than usual. The man stood up, heart pounding, feeling something was different. For the first time he walked through the doors. He moved slowly down the corridor, each step heavy with fear and hope. When he reached her room, he saw her eyes were open, searching. When they met his, time seemed to fold in on itself. No anger lived there, no blame, only recognition. "You came," she whispered. He fell to his knees beside her bed, tears breaking free after years of being trapped. "I never left," he said, voice shaking. "I just didn't know how to come back." Her hand found his, weak but warm. She squeezed with the little strength she had left. "I know," she said. "I saw you every day." A tear slipped from her eye, not of pain, but of peace. She passed away with his hand in hers, her final breath carrying a forgiveness that saved him too late, and yet just in time. The next morning, the hospital steps were empty. But something remained in the air, a reminder that love doesn't disappear when words fail, that regret can still carry devotion, and that sometimes the quietest hearts are the ones that feel the deepest. If you listen closely on rainy days, you might understand why some people still pause at hospital doors, their eyes wet for reasons they can't explain.